I want to make this video for the person, maybe you're in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s, maybe even later, and you want to become a millionaire, right? You want to become wealthy, right? You want to get to a certain level of success that you're happy with in terms of your finances. And this is where people get it wrong. I'm going to tell you right now from somebody who is a self-made millionaire, who wasn't given a bundle of money, who didn't have rich parents, who literally came from a place where, I mean, when I was 21, I was arrested, I was thrown in jail, I was hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong things, you know, was $20,000, $30,000 in debt. I was 25 years old when I started reselling, and I built myself up. It took about 10 years to become a millionaire. Now I'm probably a year out from having my second million. And I don't share that to impress you, but to impress upon you that I'm going to share with you some tips here that it might ruffle some feathers and it might go against the grain, but I'm telling you right now, this will make the biggest difference, okay? The first thing you have to understand is it's not about how smart you are, right? You see a lot of people in the comments and on Reddit, and everybody's a smarty pants, right? They know it all. They have all the answers, right? They know exactly what to do to be successful, yet they're broke. Why? Because building your wealth, becoming a millionaire, and it's not even about a millionaire, right? It's about getting to the level that makes you happy. It's not about what you know. I know so many people who are a million times smarter than me, right? But they have $1 million less dollars. Why? Because they know what to do, but they don't do it. So it's not about what you know. It's about your behavior, okay? People think that it's all about the knowledge that you have, and the knowledge you have is gonna equate to how much money you have. No. A lot of times for most people, at least for me, I was just talking to a friend about this on the phone. You know, when I got to my first probably $100,000, that was the hardest amount of money to make, right? And then, you know, there were a couple things I did, right, where I made a lot of money. Like I made $100,000 on a deal. You know, I had some really great years where I went from 100,000 to 400,000 and like quadrupled my net worth. But from going to 400,000 to now, you know, my net worth's at about 1.7, a little bit, maybe 1.75, depending on how I calculate the values of like some of my properties and different things like that. And that's not all money in the bank, right? A lot of people think as well, like, oh, wow, you're a millionaire. You have 1.5 million net worth. A lot of that for me is tied up in, you know, my 401k. It's tied up in rental properties. It's tied up in equity in my home. So that's another misconception as well. People think, oh, that person's a millionaire. He's just living the life and, you know, going on all these vacations. The reason why a lot of people, the average person becomes a millionaire is because it's slow and steady. Back to what I was saying before, when I got to about 400,000 to where I am now, it was just steady, right? 400 to 450 to 480 to 500, maybe down 30 and then up to 550 and then 650, 7, you know, slowly but surely I hit the $1 million mark, which I shared on my YouTube channel, I think, what, 3 years ago or something like that. And it's just been slow and steady. A lot of people think, and of course there's exceptions to the rule, becoming wealthy is just a boom overnight, like putting all your money in Bitcoin and holding it for 2 years and boom, you have 10 million. Or, you know, you take your Amazon business from doing 10,000 a month to $1 million a month. And I'm sure there's people who have done it, but I'm not one of those people who are super duper smart and make the right decisions. For me, I feel like I probably have an average IQ, but guess what? It's not about what you know. Of course, you've got to have knowledge and you've got to learn and find mentors and figure out what are the best things that I can do, but it's about how you behave. It's the slow, steady decisions that I've been doing at least for the last 11 years, right? The decision to budget, right? The decision to not spend my money frivolously on crazy things. The decision not to go in massive amounts of debt when, you know, at a very young age, knowing that every dollar I spend, and I'm not being like super duper cheap, but I'm not going out buying a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 car. I'm not spending money on all this luxurious stuff that I can't afford. Matter of fact, in 2018, I bought a Corvette, which was super fancy and flashy. And, you know, I did buy it with cash. I didn't go into debt. But after a year, I was like, this is silly. Like, I don't even care about this. I'd rather have this money freaking in a rental property, right? Or have it in something that's going to be building wealth, right? The people who become wealthy, time is the number one thing that's going to get you wealthy, right? It's making small little decisions to learn every day, to invest, right? Maybe you make a small little silly decision to put a couple $100 per month into your retirement account, or starting up a Roth, or putting money in the stock market, and 10, 12 years go by and all of a sudden your 30,000 turns into 150,000, right? Just as an example, it's not what you know. Of course, knowledge is important, and that's the springboard to take an action. I mean, think about it. If you have two houses and one is 2 stories and that's 200,000 and another one's 20 stories and that's 2 million, your ladder has to be leaning against the right house. What I'm saying as this metaphor is the actions that you take, it's kind of like a ladder leaning up against the house. The actions you take can only take you to a certain level. So obviously you have to be smart, but I know smart people who have the ladder leaning up against a $5 million opportunity, but they don't take action, right? They spend frivolously, they don't budget, they don't track their net worth, they don't invest in their skills, they don't invest in assets, they overspend, they go into debt. They're very smart, but they're not making smart decisions, okay? Now, you don't have to make all the best decisions in the world, right? A good example is, when it comes to baseball, you could literally be in the Hall of Fame. You could be one of the best baseball players in the world. If you fail 7 out of 10 times, if you have a 300% batting average playing baseball and you do that for 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. You're going to be one of the best baseball players in history. And it's the same with finances. Now, I would say you probably have to do a little better than 3 out of 10, but you don't have to make all the best decisions in the world. But when you're young, especially when you're young, not going into debt, right? Making sure you're investing, right? Maybe that's investing in Bitcoin. Maybe that's investing in real estate. Maybe that's investing in a 401k, index funds, right? I'm not here to tell you what to invest in. I think a lot of investments will do very, very well if you just buy it and hold it for a long time. Obviously, in my opinion, I think index funds, over the long term, the S&P 500 has performed at about 10% over the last, 100 plus years. Rental properties, people are always going to need houses. It's not for everybody. Right now, the cycle's a little whacked out when it comes to real estate, cryptocurrencies, and maybe you don't want to buy Bitcoin and you don't want to have to get a cold wallet and deal with all that. They have ETFs that have come out now where you could, get exposure to the crypto market without having to, you don't own the crypto, you don't own the keys, it's not your crypto, but you can get exposure to that and buy a little bit, maybe 2%, 5%, and hold it for the next 20 years. And I think it's the risk versus reward is really, really big, but that's not the point I'm trying to say. I'm not telling you what to invest in. What I'm trying to say is, if you want to get wealthy, you have to understand it's typically a long period of time. Most people who get wealthy, it's 10, 15, 20 years out. They're making small decisions. They're tracking their net worth. They're watching their net worth. They're nurturing it. It's like a garden. Your finances are like your garden. If you just neglect it and you just throw the seeds down and say, well, I don't know what, I live in Florida. It's sunny, right? I'm going to put up a fence and I'm going to throw the seeds down. I know it rains every now and then. Yeah, you might have a nice little harvest, right? But probably won't, because you're not taking care of it. Who knows? Maybe a deer is going to come and eat your crop. You got to pay attention. It's not how smart you are. It's your behavior. This is what people don't get. And everybody's a smarty pants now in the comments. Everybody has all the answers, right? But if you look at the actual numbers, right, and you do your research into how many people are actually a millionaire, right? Go on to Google or ChatGPT and write down, I'm 38 years old, I'm single, or I'm married. What's the average net worth, right? For a 38-year-old male, for a 52-year-old female, for a 23-year-old whatever, right? And look it up and see where the averages are. You're going to notice that 80 to 90%, they don't even have a net worth. If they have any net worth, it just might be equity in their house. And again, this doesn't mean if you have more money, you're better than the other person. But the goal here is to get wealthy, right? However that is for you. And it's all about the behaviors, the small little decisions, and letting time be your best friend. But a lot of people don't want to hear this because we live in a world, and I've said this about 50 times, where everybody's looking for the quick buck. They're looking for the shortcut, right? They're looking for the get rich quick scheme. And when people start talking about put your money in index funds, right? Invest for the future, budget. Don't go spend your money on a $50,000 car. Live below your means, right? Save your money, invest your money, right? Put your money into something that maybe in 10 or 20 years can change your life. People don't want to hear about that. They're looking for, how can I take the $1,000 that I have right now and I want to play roulette. I was going to say Russian roulette, which it kind of is. I want to play roulette. I want to put all my money down on red, and if I win, I'm freaking taking it. I'm moving out to Hawaii, right? Or you go bust. 99% of people who do that, they end up losing, right? The house typically always wins. Nobody wants to take that slow, steady route of building skills, of learning, of giving value. Like for me, in my finances and my business, it's just been slow and steady. It's been making YouTube videos for 10 or 11 years. Am I the best YouTuber? No. Do I even get tons of views? No. But guess what? The small amount of views that I get, I'm giving my all. I'm trying to help. I'm making a difference, right? It's the same with my Amazon business. There's people doing 1,000,000 times more than me. You know, last year I did about $130,000 net after all said and done. But, you know, my hourly rate probably came out to $500-600 an hour because I've got the whole thing outsourced, right? So, you know, even a replun catcher, all these things are just they're seeds that I plant, and I'm slowly but steady nurturing them and improving and growing my net worth slowly but surely, and I'm making the right decisions. And it doesn't mean something could go wrong one day, right? And I make a video saying, damn, I I messed up. But I'm doing everything I possibly can to try to make the smart little tiny decisions that everybody just they squawk at it, they laugh at it, they say, you know, that's silly, that's stupid. Why are you putting $1,000 a month into your index funds? Why are you budgeting? Like, Steve, you got almost a $2 million net worth. You're driving a Toyota Tacoma 2019 with 53,000 miles on it, which I love this truck. I like that. I'll put a picture. I think it's a nice truck, right? Why don't you like go buy a Tesla? Like, why don't you go buy a really nice truck? Like something really nice. Like, Steve, like, why don't you go buy $1 million house? Like, get something really big and like show off and like, you're successful, man. Like, show it off to the world. The thing is, I want to be that. There's a book called, what is it? The Millionaire Next Door. I want to be the guy that people laugh at. Not necessarily laugh at, but they're just like, oh, it's just an average Joe. Like, yeah, look at him. He's just getting by. Like, he just has a, you know, a nice little median house. He has a, you know, a nice little Tacoma, like nothing special. And, you know, the thing is, and I was having a conversation with my friend Jason Clark yesterday. I said, I want to live the opposite how of all my friends live, how everybody lives right now. So when I'm 50 years old, I can enjoy the opposite of what everyone else is going to be doing. They're all going to be grinding and worrying and stressed and finances and trying to make the next buck and running around the thrift stores at 50, 60 years old. And I'm not talking trash about those people, but I don't want to do that. I want to use my youth now to make the right decision so I can live differently in the future. I know there's going to be coming a time in the future where, and this is kind of messed up to say, but terrible things will happen. There's going to be a day where my parents pass away, where maybe I'm going to have to help out my brother or help out my mom or buy a property for my mom or for my dad or fix up the house or do something. Like, we all think that this world is just so freaking peachy and sunshines and there's never going to be terrible things that happen. And the reality is you've got to be prepared when things are really, really good. I mean, and you're just in a nice sunny little environment. You have to understand you're either going into a storm or you're coming out of a storm, right? And there's going to be a storm coming or you're going to be coming out of the storm. When things are really bad, there's always a sunny day on the other side. And when things are freaking beautiful and life is good and it's like, man, look at you, Steve, you got everything under control. Life is great. Boom, a terrible thing happens. Somebody passes away. You get sued. You get a tax bill. Who knows what's going to happen? Of course, be smart, be prepared, but you just have to kind of keep those things in mind. And I know people just don't want to talk about that, but just want to make this video, guys. I don't know if this offers any value. If you have any questions or follow-ups, or you're like, this is a silly video, Steve, just get back to talking about selling on Amazon, fine, let me know. But this is something that I really wish that I would have known when, you know, maybe I was 18 or 19, because I really didn't start investing seriously probably until about 28 or 29 years old, and I'm 38 now. So obviously I started reselling at about 25 and I was saving money and different things, but I wish I would have invested earlier. I wish I would have, you know, bought a rental property earlier, right? Instead of renting for so many years. And now again, it's a little different of a situation with the market, in my opinion, but I wish I would have put money into a Roth IRA earlier. I wish I was started investing in index funds, right? I wish I used to spend frivolously and I didn't learn and I didn't invest and I was just trying to make a quick buck, and I would have had an extra 10 years. I'm really proud of where I am today, but I wish I would have known some of these things when I was younger. And just when I was younger, I just thought, like, you know, the people who are wealthy, it was something really special, a really quick, fast way they made money. And it's just not the case for 98% of people. So with that being said, guys, much love. Happy New Year. Hope you have a blessed day.